The plane landed at LAX at 6:12 a.m. I turned off airplane mode. My screen lit up. 18 messages. 3 missed calls. And 1 email with a subject line I couldn't mistake: notice of termination effective immediately. I didn't open it right away. I stayed seated, hands resting on the armrest. The woman next to me was still struggling to pull her suitcase from the overhead bin. I gave her a nod, then finally opened the email. 2 lines. No greeting. No thanks. Leona, as part of strategic realignment, your role is being dissolved effective immediately. HR will follow up. No signature. No sender's name. Just an address: ceo.officecorrelane.global, the one Leon Marlowe's assistant used for calendar invites. No one called me. No one texted. No explanation, just 2 words: realignment and dissolved. I stepped off the plane with the crowd, rolling my suitcase, holding my gray jacket. As I passed through security, I overheard someone yelling into their phone, "No, that shipment hasn't left port yet, they pushed the schedule again." I didn't turn around, but I knew exactly what he meant. That pushed schedule? I made that call 3 weeks ago. The system hadn't even processed the update before I left for this trip. While waiting for a taxi, the phone buzzed again. Sophie, the regional HR lead. I let it ring out. Didn't pick up. Not because I was angry. Because I didn't need to. That trip had lasted 9 days. 3 cities. 5 warehouses. 2 partner reviews. I had sent the next week's logistics brief to my entire team the night before, while sitting at Changi Airport. I hadn't slept 4 full hours. But I was completely alert. It didn't feel like disappointment. Or even betrayal. It felt like a door closing exactly when it should. Instead of heading home, I asked the driver to take me to a small cafe in Culver City. No office. No explanations. The place opened early. Soft jazz. Dark wood tables. I picked the seat by the window. Ordered an espresso. Opened my laptop. Typed 3 words into the search bar: Plan B East Map. I'd created that folder 2 months ago. Updated it with every trip. Each meeting gave me another note to tuck away. I didn't fight with emails. I played with maps. And today was the day I opened it. 9:12 a.m. Sophie texted Leona, "HR needs to confirm if you still have any company devices. Can you let me know?" I replied, "Left everything on my desk before the trip. Passwords unchanged." No further message. No questions. No mention of the email. 11:37 a.m. A call from an unknown number. I didn't answer. But I knew who it was. 11:52 a.m. A message from Leon Marlowe. "We need to urgently discuss the Southeast warehouse routes. Your internal maps haven't been updated. We need your input." I sent back a single image, a scanned copy of the regional distribution map, annotated in pen. At the bottom, I had written, "Only those who've been on the ground know where not to send a truck in monsoon season." No message. No invitation to talk. No signature. I turned off my phone. Looked up. The cafe had filled up. Staff wiping down tables. Sunlight coming in soft through the glass. I sipped the coffee. Didn't think about yesterday. Didn't think about the job. I only thought about Route 5 on the backup map, the one that would go live in 14 days, through a system that no longer belonged to them. I joined Correlane Global in 2011. Back then, we were still called RPS Freight, a modest logistics firm trying to hold its own against the giants. I was 34, fresh off a failed startup in Malaysia, hungry to build something that didn't collapse when funding ran dry. They hired me to oversee the Southeast Asia corridor. It was a skeleton route, then 2 sea lanes, 1 fragile customs partner, and a network of warehouses that couldn't sync their own inventories. I said yes anyway. Not because it was glamorous, but because it was real. Something broken I could make whole. Over the next decade, I didn't ask for promotions. They came anyway. First to regional ops manager. Then executive director. By the time we rebranded to Corlane and expanded to the Midwest and Eastern Europe, I was running everything east of Geneva. Quietly. Efficiently. Without asking for a seat at the big table. During COVID, I slept in a warehouse outside Penang for 4 days, coordinating emergency shipments by flashlight while the main system was down. When customs shut down our Hanoi route, I rerouted traffic through Cambodia overnight using old relationships and even older IOUs. None of it made the newsletter. But our clients stayed. So did I. I believed in institutional memory. In Hansen leadership. I remembered birthdays. I rode in the back of shipment trucks. I knew the names of the floor supervisors' kids. To me, that was operations. But something shifted when Leon Marlowe joined as CEO. You could feel it not all at once, but in waves. Like warm water cooling under your feet before a storm. He came from a fintech background. Spoke often about automating supply chains, data-first thinking, and AILD route optimization. I smiled politely during the briefings. But I knew the ground. And the ground rarely matched the spreadsheet. Then the meetings started to shrink. I stopped getting invites to cross-functional planning sessions. My strategy reports stopped receiving replies. Instead, I saw slides titled Optimization Phase 2 built without a single line of input from my teams. I didn't confront anyone. Just watched. The first true sign came in the form of a calendar edit. A monthly sync I had with senior warehouse leads cancelled, no explanation. When I asked James, my logistics director, he paused. Sophie said we're experimenting with flatter structures. Fewer dependencies on regionals. That word dependencies stuck with me. Weeks later, I found out that the internal data team had been instructed to bypass my approval for network changes. They were modeling traffic flows using AI simulations that hadn't been field tested. One scenario involved removing the Kluang hub entirely. I had set up that hub in 2014 after 2 years of shipment losses through Port Klang. They hadn't even visited the site. I voiced concern once in a reply-all thread, brief and professional. No one responded. That's when I started saving things. Nothing illegal. Just copies of logistics diagrams, backup routing logs, forecast models. Data I had helped build and knew how to read. They could remove me from the calls. But they couldn't erase what I knew. 3 months before the trip, a consultant showed up unannounced to one of our Manila hubs. Young. Confident. Didn't know how to pronounce Calamba. He was from a firm Leon had mentioned during a QA they're helping us modernize end-to-end. The warehouse floor manager later told me the guy was asking questions about how often we bypass the dashboard suggestions in favor of manual calls. Almost daily, the manager had said. That's how real routes worked. Especially in rainy season. The consultant wrote that down. But I doubt he understood. One Friday, I noticed that my name had disappeared from the core operations org chart. No email. No explanation. Just gone. I printed a copy. Folded it. Slipped it into my notebook. Then I booked my next site visit. 3 countries in 9 days. No one objected. Maybe they thought I was tying up loose ends. Maybe they hoped I wouldn't come back. But I wasn't tying up anything. I was mapping things the way only someone on the ground could. I was noting which trucks got stuck in which borders, which partners delayed customs under the table, which docks flooded after just 2 hours of rain. I was building the real map. One they didn't know they'd soon need. And one they wouldn't know how to read once I was gone. The funny thing about systems is they always look neat from far away. Zoom out enough, and even a cracked foundation looks like structure. Until it rains. It started with a chart. A friendly-looking dashboard slide shown during a leadership webcast. Projected savings 12.6 across APAC warehousing by strategic hub realignment. Projected by who? Modeled from where? No one said. But I knew. I paused the video. Zoomed in on the mock layout. They were planning to shut down the Tanbin crossdock. I didn't blink. I'd walked that floor during Tet Holiday 3 years ago, when a last-minute customs error nearly derailed a $40 million pharma shipment. No simulation accounted for that kind of memory. No algorithm remembered the name of the officer I'd called at 1:17 a.m. to open the gate. They were trimming costs. But they were also cutting arteries. That night, I reviewed the beta release of the new logistics AI they'd quietly rolled out to regional managers. I still had access. Probably an oversight. Or maybe no one thought I'd read it. The model had impressive architecture. But the data feeding it was sterile. Too clean. Too theoretical. They'd scrubbed out the messy exceptions, the gray areas. Which meant the model was predicting efficiency by rerouting traffic away from high-yield but high-risk ports. And straight into unreliable dead zones that looked perfect on paper. I bookmarked every route that would fail. Flagged every blind corner they wouldn't see until too late. I didn't report it. Didn't call anyone out. Why warn people who'd already made up their minds? Instead, I downloaded the logs. Built a side-by-side model versus reality, and saved it to an encrypted folder on a private drive. I named it When the Rain Comes. In early February, a junior analyst from finance reached out. Said she had inherited a routing cost anomaly report and needed historical context. I offered a quiet 30-minute call. No slides. No judgment. Just one thing, I asked, have you compared the modeled outputs against the delay-adjusted invoice data? Silence. She hadn't. No one had. I sent her a file. One she shouldn't have needed me for if anyone had been paying attention. 3 hours later, she replied, your figures show a 1.2 m variance. All hidden in transit delay write-offs. I didn't reply. I didn't need to. Later that week, I was copied accidentally on a thread between two execs discussing Leona's stubborn adherence to legacy networks. I printed it. Nothing stings quite like people assuming you're irrelevant while still relying on your designs to keep their numbers stable. That's when I realized what was happening. They weren't just replacing me. They were hollowing out the system while pretending it would still stand. They were preparing to pin the cracks on transition friction. And I was the friction. It's strange, the calm that comes after clarity. I stopped trying to be included. Started walking the docks again instead. Not to fix things. Just to remember them. Which containers always came mislabeled. Which warehouse staff corrected routing codes manually because the central system hadn't updated since last quarter. I took photos. Notes. Not for them. For me. I also started laying tracks. Quietly. Met with a former client now head of a mid-sized logistics upstart. We talked routing philosophies over black coffee in Jakarta. Didn't pitch anything. Just shared a few ideas. Then another in Manila. Then Bangkok. Each time, I listened more than I spoke. Each time, someone asked if you ever build something of your own, we'd want in. I smiled. Didn't answer. Just sipped my drink. The final piece came from someone I hadn't heard from in 2 years. Carlos, an old customs liaison in Ho Chi Minh, now working with Port Analytics. He sent me a casual note. AI team pulled access logs last week. They're testing traffic forecasting through alternate port access, but they don't realize Q3 flood data was never digitized. You were the only one who used to account for that manually, just a heads up. I reread the message twice. Closed my laptop. Then opened my notebook and drew the region by hand. No models. No formulas. Just rain. And trucks. And roads I knew better than they ever would. By the time my last trip wrapped, I had everything I needed, a complete schematic of what they thought they were optimizing. And the reality they were slowly dismantling. I didn't sabotage anything. Didn't delete or overwrite. Just watched the structure lean ever so slightly with each quiet miscalculation. They hadn't fired me yet. But I could feel it. The question wasn't if. It was whether they'd realize what they were losing before they lost it entirely. They didn't. They say revenge is best served cold. I never liked that word. This wasn't revenge. It was architecture. Every move they made, I mapped. Every person they ignored, I quietly met. Every system they eroded, I backed up. Not to bring it all down, but to know exactly where it would crack. 3 weeks before the Singapore trip, I met with Halvin. A name they never bothered to remember. He used to run supply ops at one of our smaller vendors. Now he led a nimble logistics tech firm, Galeos, growing fast across Southeast Asia. Not a direct competitor to Corlane. Not yet. We met at a rooftop bar in Makati. It was humid, the kind of humidity that stuck behind your ears. What are you building? I asked him, between sips of soda water. A lightweight network, flexible, adaptive, no central dependency. Think FedEx meets insurgency tactics. I smiled. He didn't know how perfect that was. I didn't pitch myself. Didn't show him my files. I just listened. Let him talk about warehouse liquidity, mobile route assets, API-driven custom sync. Then I asked, simply, if I brought you a map, not a drawing, a real map, one that knows which gates flood in monsoon, which ports delay clearance over lunch, would you know what to do with it? Halvin didn't blink. He nodded. I'd build around it. That was the beginning. I didn't quit. Didn't give notice. Instead, I built a bridge. 1 foot still in Corlane. The other already testing soil somewhere else. Each warehouse visit, I didn't just observe. I revised. I updated the contingencies. Checked which local teams had shifted loyalties, which vendors were tired of being ignored by Marlowe's new model-first mandates. I never asked questions directly, I just let people talk. They always did. Leona, since the system update, we've had to override 40 of routing orders. Did you hear they're removing the Manila dock next quarter? That's insane. Hey, you're still around? Thought they pushed you upstairs already. I kept my responses light. Neutral. But my pen never stopped. Mid-trip, in Singapore, I met with an old procurement officer I once worked alongside during a customs shakeup in 2016. She now advised multiple firms on cross-border logistics stability. We had coffee in a quiet corner of Terminal 3. I heard you're transitioning, she said, cautiously. I gave her a look. No one said anything, she added quickly. But people notice. Marlowe's cleaning house, right? I didn't confirm or deny. But before we parted, I handed her a folded note. Tell Halvin Route 5C is clear. No overlap with Corlane's NDAs. Can go live by next cycle. She blinked. Then nodded. We didn't shake hands. We didn't smile. When I landed back in LA and saw the termination email, there was no panic. Because the engine had already been running elsewhere. Halvin texted me the next day, received your packet. Impeccable. We're greenlighting 3 regions next week. Ready when you are. I replied with a single word: ready. The only thing left was the handoff. But I wouldn't give it to them. Leon Marlowe tried calling me 4 times. Then emailed. Urgent, need access to your last shipment Pathfinder models. SEA timelines in jeopardy. I ignored the first. Forwarded the second to Sophie, CCing no one, with the attachment stripped down to the public version. No notes. No insights. Just enough. 3 days later, I got a LinkedIn message from a floor manager in Bangkok. You left? I didn't answer. Instead, I watched. Quietly. From the outside, I saw the first crack appear when Corlane's Southeast Asia dashboard began reporting data inconsistencies. Their new AI couldn't reconcile the new traffic without the manual logs I'd always kept. They didn't know those logs weren't stored on Corlane's drives. They were mine. Built on observation. Memory. Human pattern. You can't train a model to recognize the silence before a customs raid. But I could. Halvin moved quickly. Within a week, he'd secured a mid-level contract with a former Corlane client, one that had quietly grown tired of being told our system will optimize soon. They didn't want promises. They wanted results. I gave them a week-by-week breakdown of what our corridor would look like. No fancy charts. Just a 2-page brief and a list of people who'd still pick up my call at 2:00 a.m. 10 days after my termination, Corlane issued an internal memo: unexpected disruptions in APAC traffic due to third-party system gaps. The wording was sterile. The panic underneath wasn't. I knew because James, my old logistics director, texted me from his personal number. Is this you? I didn't reply. He'd know. Then came the call. Not from HR. Not from Marlowe. From Everett, the chairman. Leona. I understand there may have been a misunderstanding. We'd like to discuss transitional consulting. Of course, compensated generously. I let the silence stretch. He continued, just until our systems stabilize. Your knowledge is deeply missed. I replied calmly. I haven't gone anywhere, Everett. I've just shifted routes. He hesitated. I see. Can we at least talk? Not today. There's a moment in logistics right before a truck misses its window where you can still recover. If you move fast. If you know what you're doing. They didn't. And I didn't stop them. I just stepped aside. And let them drive straight into the storm. The first domino didn't fall. It drifted. A delay report from the Singapore hub flagged as non-critical. Then 2 missed shipments from Manila. One warehouse went dark for 6 hours in Chonburi due to unresolved routing conflicts. Individually, nothing sounded catastrophic. Together, they formed a pattern. One I didn't have to point out. Because I'd already drawn it months ago. I watched from the sidelines. Halvin's system lit up green. Corlane's lit up red. Route 5C, the same one they once called non-viable, processed 11 faster throughput under Galios than Corlane's legacy map could simulate. Clients noticed. One of them emailed me directly, subject line, "Is this your work?" I didn't answer. But they sent flowers anyway. Inside Corlane, panic was slow. Then sudden. By week 3, Southeast Asia's entire delivery cycle had to be paused for revalidation. By week 4, a customs partner refused to clear a port batch in Cebu. They said routing discrepancies created liability we will not absorb. I'd worked with that same partner for a decade. They knew better than to trust a machine that didn't recognize flood season patterns. The board grew nervous. Leadership meetings doubled. Then tripled. Someone floated the idea of contacting external consultants. Leon resisted. He said, "We're on the edge of a breakthrough. We just need more data." They had data. What they lacked was memory. I received a forwarded email from someone I hadn't spoken to in 6 months, an assistant on the tech team. It was a message chain between Leon and Everett. Subject: SEA contingency urgent. Leon's tone was defensive. He blamed the data pipeline. Blamed the vendor. Blamed the terrain. He never once blamed himself. Then came the number. A quiet update from finance: 4.6 million in adjusted losses over 21 days. All traced to forecast error and route disruption. That figure wasn't public. But it reached the board. And just like that, silence cracked. At 10:42 on a Tuesday morning, Corlane's internal Slack leaked. A screenshot of a private thread. The file name in question? Leona ops override of 2.pdf. It wasn't mine. It was a scrambled, corrupted version of the logs I'd once maintained. Someone had tried to reconstruct my system. They failed. Badly. That night, I got a message from James. "Leon's been called in. Everett isn't smiling anymore." Then another. From Sophie. "You didn't leave quietly. You left surgically." I stared at that one for a long time. Then deleted it. No need to reply. By Friday, the collapse was visible from the outside. 2 clients publicly announced they were re-evaluating logistics partners in Asia Pacific. One of them was our crown jewel. The other was the reason I once missed my sister's wedding, rerouting 800 tons of medical freight overnight during a warehouse fire in Vietnam. I remembered the fire. The smell. The people. I doubted Leon remembered anything beyond a number on a quarterly chart. Then, finally, the call came. From Leon. Leona. His voice was flat. "I know things didn't go the right way. And I take full responsibility for that. He didn't. But we're in a very complex transition, and your insights, your unique experience could help us bridge the gap." I let him talk. He asked if I'd return as a consultant, interim, whatever title were. I asked, would I be listened to? There was a pause. "We're open to all options." Another pause. I replied, "I'm not." Click. 2 days later, an internal memo was issued effective immediately. Leon Marlowe is stepping down as CEO. No, thank you. No tribute. Just dissolved. Just like I was. Halvin and I met again, this time in person. No rooftop. No fanfare. We sat across from each other in a quiet room, with laptops open and logistics dashboards glowing. "You good?" he asked. "Better," I said. "You?" He smiled. "We just picked up another client. Said they want someone who knows how to avoid monsoon mistakes." I nodded. No ego. Just quiet satisfaction. Somewhere, I knew Leon was rewriting his resume. Probably calling it a misalignment of visions. He wouldn't say my name. But he'd think it. Every time someone asked, "How did this fall apart so fast?" he'd think she didn't even raise her voice. I didn't celebrate. Not in the way people think. No champagne. No press release. No post on LinkedIn. Just a quiet morning in Singapore. Window open. Coffee warm. Dashboard humming softly with green lines. Route 5C had been live for 22 days. 0 incidents. 0 delays. I walked through one of the Galileo's hubs, the same one Corlane once called inefficient. It was quiet, orderly. No wasted steps. No second guessing. I recognized the floor manager. He used to be under James. Now, he runs the place. You designed this, didn't you? He asked. I shrugged. Just reminded people what worked. He nodded, and didn't ask more. That's the thing about people who actually do the work, they don't need long stories. I never officially joined Gallios. Didn't want a title. I work on a retainer. Advisory, technical, strategic, pick a word. I still draw maps by hand. Still track the weather in places people forget to notice. Still keep a printed chart of which customs gates flood after 4 p.m. in September. Some habits aren't nostalgic. They're tactical. One afternoon, Everett reached out again. A short message. Would value your insights on rebuilding phase. Coffee? I didn't reply. Some cracks aren't meant to be filled. Especially when they were poured without foundation in the first place. James emailed, too. Said Corlane was restructuring again. He asked if I was open to exploring a re-entry in the future. I told him I appreciated the note, and that the road I was on didn't loop back. He understood. Sophie sent a card. No apology. Just 6 words: you were right. We didn't listen. I folded the card. Placed it in the drawer with the old org chart, the one that had my name missing. Sometimes, silence is the loudest vindication. People ask me what I'd do differently. I say, nothing. Because every overlooked warning, every cancelled meeting, every passive-aggressive thread, they built the path. Not to vengeance. But to clarity. They taught me exactly how not to be seen. And from that invisibility, I built the most visible thing of all: resilience. There's a strength in not needing to come back. In watching the building you once maintained from the outside. Knowing where every bolt used to be. And exactly where it gave out. I still walk warehouse floors. Still sip coffee in silence. Still listen more than I speak. Not because I'm cautious. Because I've learned the loudest person in the room usually doesn't know which wall leaks in the storm. But I do.